Okay, I'll now call the Carroll County Board of Commissioners July 27th work session to order. The first thing we have on our agenda this evening or this afternoon is solid waste equipment with Jacqueline Doss, our solid waste director.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman, Board of Commissioners. I come before you today just strictly in an informational setting. I have worked with Ms. Sunday Cook to put together a request for proposal based on the last RFP that Mr. Yates and Public Works did for a slightly smaller excavator than they purchased. As you can see from the slide, this is what we're working with currently at Solid Waste. This packs almost 400 tons of trash every day, 6 days a week. This was a used Army piece of equipment when Public Works got it, and then we inherited it, and it has gone through a lot of wear and tear over the years. We are currently in a position where, thanks to all of the wonderful things going on in the county and all of the construction going on, if this excavator goes down, we have no way to pack a trailer. And so we have worked with Finance Director Searcy to locate some funds, and I'm just coming to you today because when the request for proposal drops next week, I don't want anybody to have any questions. I'd love you to just ask them now. And as for the current timeline, the request for proposal will drop. I believe it's the 2nd, stays open for 30 days. It will close on the last day of the month, which is Thursday, the 31st of August, and then we will come before you with those bids and ask you to vote at that time.
Ms. Doss, a couple of comments. I guess you're gonna have the claw on it. I don't know what the proper terminology is. I know the other one.
We're actually going to have a manual thumb, just like the last one that Public Works bought, so that we can claw, but it will be manual. The problem with anything hydraulic, again, if you can picture that bucket pushes down in that trailer and packs that trash, anything like that, I'd be worried that the hydraulics would rip when it snags on an old pallet or some piece of trash that's not sitting straight. So it will have a thumb, but it'll be manual.
Okay, thank you. And the only other ask I would have in the RFP is that if you would ask for extended warranties.
warranty, yeah.
Some companies may want to offer something and not charge, or they may say, hey, if you buy something additional, here's the price. But I would like to know to be able, because to me, the warranty is a big dynamic, obviously, in choosing what we purchase. So if that could just be added in the RFP, that would be great.
We'll make sure that's there.
Thank you.
Just a couple questions. And these funds, they weren't in your budget? Found-
They are in the solid waste reserve.
Reserve, okay, okay. So they're not coming out of SPOS funds, is that right?
No,
Okay.
solid waste does not have any SPOS
Yeah,
funds.
yeah, okay. And, yeah, I was thinking the same thing, is might as well go ahead and get all the equipment we need now added to it, a better price, I guess. What I understand is, I guess, solid waste was kind of they got the hand-me-downs from Public Works, and you can certainly tell that by the pictures. So now we're in a situation where we don't have any hand-me-downs available from Public Works, and we need a piece of equipment. Is that
I mean, if
right?
we don't have a way to pack the trailers, like
Yeah.
our loaders can't pack efficiently, and we
Yeah.
send out 14, 16 trailers a day, at least 5 days a week, and several on the weekend as well. So we currently, if that, and on top of which, the last repair that Public Works had to make to the excavator, you can't move it more than like 6 or 8 inches in one direction, and that is the only way it moves. So even if it does go down, we have to pray that it goes down in a way that if we can find some other way to pack trailers, that piece of equipment isn't blocking it. So this is kind of an urgent need.
Yeah. I mean, it seems reasonable to me. So.
All right, thank you. I'll see you after the RFP closes.
Thank you, Jacqueline. I'm now going to call Alicia Searcy to go over our finances.
Good afternoon, Commissioners and Chairman. The only thing I have to review with you at this work session is the Rushton engagement letter for our audit. We're getting prepared to get started. In fact, they're here today and tomorrow, getting a pretty early start on our audit. We actually have added some work to the scope. Last year, we had one GASB edition. This year we've got another GASB edition. So the scope of my work and the scope of their work has increased due to those additional GASB reporting. They have continued to maintain the same fee that they've charged in the past. That we will have to have a single audit because of the amount of federal funding that we're receiving. Anything over $750,000, you have to have a single audit. So they will add $5,000 for the single audit, and then $3,000 for any major program past that. But I think the $5,000 should cover it. It has in the past. But more or less, the engagement is the same engagement that they have done in the last years. And as you know, they've been our auditors for several years now and have done a good job for us.
Do we have any questions for Alicia concerning this? Seeing and hearing none, are y'all good with putting this on a consent agenda? Yes. I did kind of skip ahead, but I knew you wanted to get back to them, so that was actually 9.5, so I wanted to let Alicia get on back to doing the auditing with them. So, all right, next then we will go on to the actual business session agenda that we'll cover on Tuesday night. We have 9.1, which is a joint development authority dissolution of the 7-county JDA, and 9.2, which is a joint development authority resolution of a creation of a new 3-county JDA. And we have Brian Dill here with the Chamber, and Carol Tomorrow, President and CEO, and also with us is Jay Gill from the Development Authority. So, welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. Appreciate you having us today. Commissioner Lee, we'll catch up. I apologize for missing you. We've had some very good one-on-one conversations about what I'm going to present to you today, and it's in your packet of information. But I thought I'd walk you through kind of the backstory on how we got here and where we came from with the original authority. Georgia's Development Authorities Law dates back to 1963, although it has been amended several times since then. It allows for the laws for the creation of a development authority in each county and city in Georgia, although such a development authority cannot transact any business until it's activated by the proper resolution of the governing body of the city or county in the respective jurisdiction. This law authorizes and governs our three active authorities that we currently have in the county: Development Authority of Carroll County with Jay Gill, Chair, the Villa Rica Development Authority, and the Carrollton Payroll Development Authority. The Development Authorities Law has authorized the creation of a Joint Development Authority platform since 1981, and a Joint Development Authority is simply an authority created and activated pursuant to the provisions of the Development Authorities Law by joint and concurrent resolutions adopted by each of its participating local governments. The Joint Authority has jurisdiction to act throughout the territories of those participating local governments. In '94, the Georgia General Assembly passed the Business Expansion Support Act of '94, collectively the BEST program. And that BEST Act of '94 is a measure designed to provide tax credits, incentives to other companies locating or expanding in Georgia. This legislation provides income tax credits for job creation for certain businesses or headquarters, investment tax credits for manufacturing or telecom, retraining credits, which enable some employers to claim certain costs, or retraining of employees, or retraining employees in new technology or operating systems, and others. We currently utilize this platform now with our incentive strategy on all three of our active development authorities. But in '95, the BEST program was enhanced by increasing the otherwise available tax credit level designated yearly to each county by $500 per employee, if the project is located within the jurisdiction of a qualified joint development authority. With this added incentive, Carroll County entered into a 4-county joint development authority at the end of '94 with Haralson, Heard, and Polk counties. In 2009, that JDA was expanded to 7 counties to include Troup, Douglas, and Paulding. It was later modified when Douglas requested to leave and Coweta County replaced them. The Greater West Georgia Joint Development Authority has existed with this membership since then, with many attempts at regional marketing efforts. Each county put money in over the years to market and recruit as a region. And it really can be argued that the group was a little bit too big with too many differences in interest and priorities. And to that, the authority has essentially been inactive and dormant since 2019. Joint development authorities have a particular importance in today's economic development climate when local funding is limited and prospects are demanding. Development authorities that cover a region instead of just a city or a county have the potential to draw on the resources of that region to respond to these demands. Now more than ever, we're hearing from the Georgia Department of Economic Development, and they are encouraging regional collaboration in terms of industry recruitment strategies with limited shovel-ready sites and existing inventory. Add that to a job market that is competitive as it's ever been, and it's time to revise our strategy to create a targeted and collaborative regional approach to economic development, recruitment, and retention. To that end, I and my counterparts in Haralson and Heard are requesting that each governing body move to dissolve the 7-county Joint Development Authority currently in place and replace it with the so-called 2027 Corridor Joint Development Authority. Haralson and Heard are also moving forward with these resolutions. In your packet of information today, I call your attention on the left side of the packet to the current 2020-23 job tax credit tiers. In 2022, at the request of the Joint Development Authority of Jasper, Morgan, Newton, and Walton counties, with Rivian Automotive set to announce, the Georgia General Assembly approved the creation of a 3rd-tier JDA, which would really be step 3 in our strategy later in the process. This authorizes the creation of a new type of development authority known as a Regional Industrial Development Authority. Such an authority will have all the same powers as a single county development authority. However, its property shall qualify for the Quality Jobs Tax Credit based on the lowest tier participating county. Of the 4-tier job tax credit structure you see in front of you, tiers 1 through 4 in status, with Tier 1 counties receiving the most job tax credits at $3,500 per job, and Tier 4 counties receiving the least at $750 per job. Carroll and Harrelson are currently Tier 3s, while Heard is Tier 1. So our next step goal would be to ratify these two resolutions, stand up the JDA, Carroll, Harrelson, and Heard, and at such time as we identify targeted properties within either of those three counties, we would transfer that to a regional industrial joint development authority for that purpose. Happy to answer any questions. It's an exciting thing we've actually talked about for about 2 years in terms of the organizations, but excited about what this could provide us in terms of competitive advantage.
Ryan, will you explain better what a development authority would do versus what like the elected officials can do when it comes to new businesses, recruiting, or things like that? Could you kind of give a little explanation on that?
Sure. So our current structure right now, we actually have, Bowden has a development authority that I don't think has been re-registered and has been it has been inactive. Our two statutory authorities are the Carroll County Development Authority and the Villa Rica Development Authority. They're statutory in nature that they require, they can pass incentive packages, they can enter into intergovernmental agreements, they can do bond transactions, but they have to come back to the governing body that authorized them for final approval. Carrollton Payroll Development Authority is a constitutional authority. There's very few of those in the state. Those were originally chartered as a standalone governing body. I guess the best one in the state that's doing business right now is the Savannah Economic Development Authority, CEDA, and they're standalone constitutional. They can issue bonds, engage in property tax abatement and incentive offerings internal to that body itself. They don't need a secondary vote to go about doing that. Your joint development authorities would, by rule, be statutory. They'd have to walk, any project that we would do as a three-county region would have to come through the governing body of record wherever that property was located. So if we identify a tract in northern Carroll County, we would come before this body after having the JDA approve it, likewise in Heard and Harrelson. There's two examples. I mentioned Rivian, and that was one of the original joint development authorities that really kind of went down this path. But in anticipation of Hyundai going to Bryan County, they formed a 4-county corridor joint development authority with Bullock, Bryan, Effingham, and Chatham. And they sat down and walked through the process of what they were willing to put into the newly formed JDA, what their rate of return on any investment internal to the authority would be, and they set that up structurally. So that would be the goal for the new 3-county JDA. It was to sit down as a group and walk through the process. The new JDA has 9 members on a rolling term, staggered, appointed by the Carroll County Board of Commissioners for the 3 Carroll members. Does that answer your question?
Yes. And as a note, if we approve that, we will then, I'll be soliciting or asking y'all for nominations who we want to appoint to this board at our September meeting.
Mr. Deal, thank you for meeting with me recently as well to go over the information. So Harrelson and Heard counties, to your knowledge, are obviously supportive of this and want this joint venture. Your board has reviewed this and internally, and you representing them here today as well, correct?
Yes, sir. Carrollton Mar Board has approved us walking through this process. Kathy Knowles and Heard, the Heard County Development Authority, Eric McDonald with the Harrelson County Development Authority I think Eric's is this week too, so we're just beginning the process of walking through. One of the things that, and I get Avery to help me, but I think this is correct, it's not a requirement of state law that the former JDA go away. It is defunct right now. It will simply remain in a dormant state. We are no longer registered with the Department of Community Affairs, which is a requirement year over year that you register with that body. And each county has been notified of our intent, the 3-county intent to withdraw. Is simply up to those other counties if they want to go through that process or just walk away from the old 7-county authority.
And as far as looking at this new joint venture, obviously it makes sense on one side very much that we may not want to be, not that we wouldn't want to work with Coweta and different things, but obviously those are areas that are growing larger, further away from us. Harrelson and Heard are conjoined at the hip, so to speak, with our county. Do you foresee any disadvantages per se as far as influence or the ability to attract companies here being a smaller joint venture? In other words, the common sense part definitely makes sense. This looks like a good move, but is there anything glaring out there that could potentially hurt us by being smaller?
No, that's a great question, because I think the other two, the larger authorities, both of those 4 counties, are recruiting different product. I think what allows us to stand out in a unique fashion is that we can pinpoint agribusiness projects along the 20 and 27 corridor. We can identify targets of opportunity that are looking in this region that may not look elsewhere, and then really decide what is best fit, best place. I think Haralson has their strengths. Heard certainly has theirs. Heard County Development Authority, I think, received their last payment from Plant Wansley 2 months ago. We're all 3 kind of in product search mode. But I think the strength of this one, as we tell the story, lies in corridor development in the proper place, and then having the opportunity to look at those target markets and say, this makes the most sense here. We can market an opportunity there, while all at the same time maintaining utilization and active participation with our 3 active development authorities. We're still going to have projects of opportunity that those 3 authorities would engage in as a standalone. So it's not necessarily, I was asked this, not necessarily a takeaway from what Jay and the others are doing, because they're very much an active part of the recruitment strategy. This just allows us to be really targeted in how we identify property and product going forward.
I think a diversified portfolio and the type businesses that you're going to attract has been and will continue to be something successful for us. I liked the fact that you mentioned the agribusiness portion. As you know, the state of Georgia, we still remain in the top 5 rankings for beef and poultry production. So I think the agribusiness side of it is very important for us to continue to tap in and home in on that strength for Carroll County as well. So I was glad to hear you speak of that.
And I used 2 examples of authorities, and I want to be clear because I don't want to be misquoted. We are not actively looking for an automotive OEM that would require 8,000 jobs. That's certainly not in our wheelhouse. But I appreciate your comments, because we want to be specific in what are we recruiting and are they to our strengths.
Thank you.
I appreciated, Brian, meeting with you the other day, and thanks for putting that in motion. I do appreciate that openness, and I think it's a great thing when we can work together with you, along with our community development department. I mean, we need to work in tandem, and so thank you. Cooperation is a great thing.
Well, I appreciate your time, and as I said to you all, we want to be transparent and consistent in our approach and the manner in which we message and recruit, and look forward to working with you guys as a team.
And I appreciate too your balance, as Commissioner Chance was saying, between agriculture and actually ramping up industry. I know you well know we need to maintain that balance, and I appreciate that. I won't belabor the point here, but we talked about that a good bit. And I do think agribusiness is a good thing for this. I talked with my representative on the board, and it's kind of my understanding. I think this is a good move, just logistically, I guess, because you get 7, 8, 9 members, and it's like herding cats, if you will. I mean, there's, like you mentioned, disparate agendas and that kind of thing, and I think this will allow us to more focus and maybe actually get more done. Having said that, is there, I'll kind of mirror Commissioner Chance's question, I guess, is there anything, though, from a legal standpoint or anything that would bring about less transparency or would jeopardize anything we can do with this versus our current situation?
So we've interviewed the attorney that created the Savannah JDA, kind of having him walk us through, Eric and Kathy and I, the process of where would there be pitfalls, if any, and his statement to me was basically a very solid intergovernmental agreement between the three entities. He says, as long as you have that front with everything out on paper, then you've identified what it is you're going to go do and how you're going to go about doing it.
Okay.
So we most likely will, we're standing up a different bank account basically for the authority itself, engage him, and that'll be the next step for that. Once we have the authorizations with your permission, we will engage him to start down that process of creating that document.
Okay.
Well, if there's no further questions, are y'all good with putting 9.1, which is the dissolution of the 7-county one, and 9.2, which is the creation of a new 3-county JDA? Are you good with putting both of these on a consent agenda?
Yes.
Okay, so you don't need Brian and Jay to come back on Tuesday at this point?
No.
Great.
Thank you. I was going to let Jay talk Tuesday anyway, so. Thank you, guys.
Thank you both, and thank you, Haley, for being here, too. We'll now move into 9.3, a resolution for personal property, and I'm going to call Avery Jackson to the podium concerning this.
Chairman and Commissioners, we have for your consideration a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of Carroll County to exchange personal property with the Carroll County school system. The school system has asked for 2 of the 3 trailers that are located at 997 Noonan Road. The county could not identify any use for those trailers now. I think Public Works, there's 3 trailers out there, and Public Works is dismantling 1 trailer now that didn't have any use other than what they could use it for scrap for. The other 2 trailers, the Sheriff's Department didn't need them, and the county didn't need them, so the school system asked for those trailers. And in exchange for those, the Sheriff's Department asked for a Prometheum board from the school system and additional training aids and materials that they're going to use in their training room at 997 as well. And the school system is agreeable to providing those in exchange for the additional 2 trailers.
I would like to add, if y'all have no questions, are you good with putting this on a consent? And also, are you good with the school going ahead and starting to move them tomorrow, seeing as school is starting next week?
Yes.
We'll officially vote on it Tuesday night, but for time's sake, are you good with them going ahead and moving them? Yes. Okay,
I
great.
figured Mr. Jackson was going to propose putting it on Marketplace, see how much we could get bids on, but I see that wasn't the case.
All right, thank you. All right, the next thing is 9.4, so we'll leave you there for the National Opioid Settlement.
Chairman and Commissioners, as y'all are well aware, the board voted to participate with many counties in Georgia and cities in Georgia in lawsuit concerning the opiate litigation that's a national lawsuit. And the state of Georgia has now gotten involved and really taken over the litigation. And of course, we've brought before you the agreements of how the money gets distributed from the state from any of these settlements. And this is just another settlement in that litigation with one of the defendants, which is Public Supermarkets in this case. And this is just authorizing that settlement and then distribution of any of those settlement funds pursuant to the agreements that have already been entered into with the state of Georgia. And if there are any
Similar
questions?
to the other ones we've done, so,
Yes.
yeah. Are there any questions for Avery? Seeing none, are y'all good putting this on consent? Great, thank you, Avery. We'll now go to 9.6. I'm going to call Danny Yates, Public Works Director, up to discuss this one for us.
Thank you, Chair, Board. I brought to you tonight the change order for the new administration building, which is the demolition readiness scope for Balfour Beatty. They've got us some numbers back. I know this was on last month's, but they finally got us some numbers back to move forward with it, and the total is $93,646. But as you can see, and I know me and Commissioner Chance talked today about it, there is the abatement allowance, which will cover anything that got missed earlier. And then if anything is not missed and is took care of, then that $32,350 would not be charged. So it's basically an allowance that is worked in. So that's what I'm coming tonight to ask for that, for $93,646 to be approved as a change order.
And this is for all the buildings, not just where the tag office was, it's for all the
That's
buildings out
correct,
there?
yes, sir. This will be for the entire complex.
Okay.
So this request is essentially an amount not to exceed.
Pretty much, sir.
Because of the, as you just explained, the
Yes.
32,000 may not be anything that we have to tap into with the allowance. A couple of questions that I had, I know the discussions you and I had, we were talking about, I guess, that it would be fenced off.
Yes, sir.
And I had brought up, I guess, in the exclusion part on item 22, that there was not any fencing including in the site to complete the scope of work. So I'm assuming based off some of the conversations that we've had, there's not necessarily a charge, but it's being implemented, I guess, as far as with the construction portions or whatever. Could you explain that? I just want to make sure that what we're approving, it may say it's excluding a fence, but your conversations, there's going to be one to surround the property.
Yes, sir. Me and Mr. Jackson, we talked with the gentleman at Balfour Beatty yesterday, and we recommended that once everyone moves off the site, for them to go ahead and fence the entire site in, and he agreed to do that.
And the other is just kind of a bookkeeping note. I know a lot of times these are included in pre-contract language, but it's listed that there's an inclusion of 7% sales tax. And that may just be something that's standard in there, but I just want to ensure that we cover those bases before the chairman signs something, just to make sure that since we're a government entity, we're not being charged on anything tax-wise that we shouldn't be.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
On the 32,000, is that, we can use part of that, all of it, it's not an all or none factor, it's going to be based on what they
That's
have.
correct. That's
do something.
that's more or less a built-in contingency in case there is something. If we need more money, then it's already there to take, and we would not have to come back and ask for any more.
Well, if there's no further questions, are y'all good with putting this on a consent agenda for Tuesday night? Okay, great. Thank you, Danny.
All right, thank you.
Okay, 9.7 is a resolution for an abandonment of 1.13 acres on West Villa Road. We will take that up on Tuesday because it kind of goes with a zoning, the rezoning on West Villa Road. So we will go ahead and handle that. So we'll do the consent agenda, the zoning, the consent agenda, and then we'll tackle this one, 9.7, at that time. Okay, so if there's no other, I didn't miss anything, did I, Linda?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so at this point, I will agenda our work session then. Thank you.